Welcome back to another episode of Shady Talks. I am here with my good friend Omar Rushan Borhi, the Burger Popper to some at Omar Rushan Borhi on Twitter. He is a phenomenal person to be around. He's the co-host of the Hardware Pod with Jackson Danner and a contributor for Redshirt Sports, the Hustle Belt, and As for Football. Omar, how are we doing this morning?
Doing great. I know we had some technical difficulties. Maybe that's lost media now.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, I really appreciate the intro, but I mean, you're doing great work too with the Shady Talk and everything and Inside the Loud House. I mean, I'm excited for another year of Syracuse football. I mean, it's great to see them in a kickoff game. And it's a far cry from me growing up in the Northeast and having the syndicated game of the week and Syracuse always being on it because they were just awful under Greg Anderson. Rest in peace. Good guy, but not a great head coach.
Yeah, you summed it up pretty well there. Uh, yeah. I mean, yeah, I know probably some of those Army teams. I don't even think those were especially good Army teams in the mid 2000s, but they probably would have gave Syracuse a run for their money and or won most times. Dark eras though, and we're gonna
Yep.
put that behind, and I'm gonna stay away from Syracuse. We will be talking about Army. We'll get to that in a little bit, but today we are gonna be talking about Auburn's claimed national championships, the SEC's move to 9 conference games, and that ripple effect that will come from it because we're not just gonna get 9 SEC games with no other consequences. And finally, an outlook for and path for success for service academies, Army, Navy, Air Force. They have been surprisingly successful. Some of the more consistent teams in the group of five this past couple of years. And there's a good chance that one, two, or three of them can find themselves in maybe college football playoff talks, top 25 talks, if nothing else, having another good season. But let's get into it. Starting off with the Auburn Claim Natties. So they claimed four more national championships last week for the years 1910, 1914, 1958, and 2004. This is bringing their total to 9. These titles are all recognized by the NCAA, but they're all from minor polls or minor selectors. None of them are from because Auburn was the number one team, the AP poll or the coaches poll. Obviously, this is all before the BCS except 2004, but Auburn didn't even play in the national championship game that year. So there are some, I guess, questions about the legitimacy of these national championships. Omar, I want to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so I think the questions on legitimacy are valid, but I don't really see an issue with it because college football has always had a flawed system of determining national champions, or I should say the FBS level, because FCS Division Two, Division Three, they have it pretty like down pat, pretty perfect. But I don't see an issue. Like we'll start with 2004. I mean, that's an Auburn team that did everything they could. I mean, controlled what they could control. We can talk about what ifs all the time about, what if they played Oklahoma or USC, excuse me, in the national championship game. But they did everything they could. They went 13-0. They won all their games. And, you can't blame them for the polls, the computers, the BCS pushing them out of the system that resided. As for the other ones, the pre-AP national championships are always interesting because it's kind of a forcing mechanism for fans to kind of learn about the pre-AP poll era of college football. Kind of reminds me of pre-merger NFL championships or Super Bowls where I mean, people have to research and look at the Browns before the merger, the Browns being a good team that won many championships. So it's good to see like the 1910, 1914 teams get the respect like they deserve for going undefeated or whatever record they had and getting selected. But if the NCAA recognizes it, I don't see an issue, especially for like the pre-AP poll teams too. Like I know for references as an Army fan, like Army's got a couple of pre-AP poll national championships, and that's a forcing mechanism to go beyond our World War II years and look at those great teams too, like that did everything that they could. And I think finally too, I think it's just a good thing. I don't really see an issue with it because college football or the FBS level has converged on one storyline, the college football playoff. And so there was a time where teams just played games and you showed up in a bowl game, the 58 team. I don't know what bowl they played in, but I mean, that was just the reality. And with the playoff, there's always the looming cloud or the overarching cloud that if you don't win the playoff, if you don't make the playoff at all, then your season's a wash. And that's just not true. College football has had a bunch of, there's always been great teams that have been, rewarded with great things like bowl games or have had great undefeated seasons. I mean, just something that's like close to home, El Paso. Like I used to live in El Paso. UTEP honored a team that went 9-3 in 1988, lost Independence Bowl, but that's one of their greatest teams, and they were honored as such. So I think it's good because claiming these national championships kind of reminds people that there's more to college football than the playoff.
Yeah, you made a lot of great points there. Starting off with the 2004 national championship claim, you can only control the teams that you play is probably a selling point that a lot of Auburn fans or a lot of SEC fans would say against, let's say, some of those late 2000s Boise State teams. Oh, they shouldn't play for the national championship. They played the WAC. They played nobody, whatever. They still beat every single team they played. They beat some teams like a really good Virginia Tech team, Oregon, a couple teams like that, which could have showed that did show that those Boise State teams were elite and had the talent to win a national championship. Um, Moving on past that, though, I thought that was just kind of funny. And I know Auburn fans are going to say, "Hey, if we had an opportunity to play for a national championship, let's say we were in the college football playoff era now, yes, we could have won it. Or if at least if we lost, if we lost Oklahoma in the semifinals or USC in the championship game, we can understand, hey, we just weren't the best team. And honestly, if they had, let's say this 2004 Auburn team was before the BCS, let's say instead of this happening in 2004, this happened in 1984, Auburn probably would have already claimed a national championship, assuming they would have won the Orange Bowl, which they did. That's a 13-0 SEC championship, undefeated season. That is more than good enough to claim a national championship, especially probably with a split national championship as well. So yeah, that's a good point there. And another point I love is just talking about how we need to highlight more teams that, sure, they're not the greatest team this Auburn team was, but yes, it seems like all people care about now is, are you in the playoff? Did you win the national championship? Did you win your conference? And that just doesn't highlight how the discrepancies in teams and the different expectations between teams, for example, because not every team, we're not all playing to win a national championship. We're not all playing to even win a conference championship. There's just inherent differences in college football and just how good a team can be just based on history, based on resources, all of that. College football is not a professional sport, for better or for worse. For worse is parity. Any NFL team, in theory, can win a national championship. There's no reason why even the Browns or the Raiders, a team like that, there's no reason why they can't win a national or a Super Bowl in 10 years. There are a million reasons why Vanderbilt's not going to win a national championship in the next 10 years, barring something improbable. So that's a good point. I love seeing something I try to do with this channel. I like to highlight teams that don't get as much respect as they deserve, or something that isn't being talked about enough. And yeah, that's a good point from you about that, Omar.
Yeah, and I agree with what you said about the expectations. Like it differs from each program, right? Like, why not hang a banner, if you have a valid enough point? And for me, an NCAA recognized national championship is a valid enough point. I mean, Auburn isn't one of those programs with low expectations, kind of, the years of background. But I think that's just the point too, where it's like all these years of lore kind of build up. And I mentioned it in like I think another podcast, where it's like college football is like a Greek epic, where it's like you have these years of history that build up to the storylines that you have right now. And to just ignore that just for the sake of, the college football playoff, it's just doing a disservice to a lot of fans.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Last point I want to make here is I don't want to see too many claimed national championships. For example, Oregon this past year, 12-0 Big Ten champions, got blown out to Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. They are they can claim a national championship if they want to. There was a selector that said, "Hey, Oregon, we ran this analytical model that said Oregon was the best team in the country. They are our national champions," which for anybody who watched the Rose Bowl is more than definitive proof that Oregon wasn't national champions. They they in a previous era they might have been national champions, not in 2024, not playing Ohio State. Um, we're going to move on from that, and we are going to move to the SEC's move to 9 conference games. This is starting in 2026. The SEC has historically just play 8 conference games. Now they will be joining the Big Ten and the Big 12 as conferences who do that. So from a fan's perspective, I think this is a great move. We're going to see more good games. We're going to lose one of those SEC cupcake weeks, probably not in week 13 because why would the SEC do that? But there's going to be one more exciting game to watch each week. And we're also going to continue to see the SEC require teams to play a power conference team. They're non-con, so the SEC, all SEC teams will still have to play somebody from the ACC, Big 10, Big 12, or Notre Dame. This is, again, just going to give us more exciting games to watch. I think from a fan's perspective, this is fantastic. Obviously, there's some other perspectives too, but I want to hear yours, Omar. What do you have to say?
Yeah, so I agree, Alec, with it being exciting for fans, really. I mean, having another conference game, another game that kind of matters in the schedule. But I will say something that's kind of scary is I know you did a wonderful piece about, the paycheck games with Power Flat, Power Four, Power Five, and FBS or Group of Five and FCS teams, and how that kind of balances the pocketbooks for them. I know this year out here in Oklahoma. Kent State plays at Oklahoma. Kent State is notorious, someone that you cited in your article as being notorious for having those like paycheck games. So I do agree that it's great for the fans to have another game that has impact on conference races, has impact on the playoff race, even bowl game impact too. But it's kind of scary in the fact where it's like I think the wealth isn't going to change hands for those paycheck games. It's going to stay more in house. And so I kind of wonder too what a program like a Kent State, because I know that there was actually a clause that I saw in FB schedules. Um, Man, I mean, God forbid the Department of Defense look into how much I look at FB schedules, just do quick checks on my work computer. It's not blocked on the DoD network, but uh, but like I saw that Kent State was maybe a little bit prepared, like cushioned for it, because they had a clause in their Kentucky contract for next year's 2026 game to automatically move it to 2030 if the SEC changes to 9 games. So I kind of wonder if a lot of schools are prepared for this for there to be a lot more group of five versus group of five series, or on the flip side, a lot less slots for paycheck games. But overall, it's good for fans, but athletic departments might kind of be shivering a little bit.
Yes, agree with you on that. I have a notes document up, and yeah, talking about how it's going to affect some of the smaller teams. It definitely will hurt them. It's going to hurt your Mississippi States, your Vanderbilts of the world, because instead of having one more opportunity to play Mercer or South Alabama, you're playing another SEC team, which that adds up. You're just playing another more quality team. Going back to talking about Kent State, their athletic budget from I believe for 2024, 2023 or 2024 was around 25 million. They made I think they made 5 million from just their guarantee games. That is 20% of your athletic budget right there. That is huge. As of right now, there are 16 SEC teams, obviously. That's 16 fewer spots for bye games. And also, the ACC is probably going to try and move to 9 conference games as well. Right now, it is not mathematically possible with 17 conference teams. They will hopefully find some solution there, or maybe they'll also require all of their teams to play an SEC team, a Big 10, a Big 12 team in their non-conference. Maybe they do something with Notre Dame, whatever it may be. But those are, again, even to fewer spots to play a group of 5 team or an FCS team in a bye game. And yes, that this is something that it's just going to hurt those athletic programs. It's tough as it is for for the group of 5 and FCS programs just to turn a profit. Now you're losing an opportunity to make $1 million a year. I'm also wondering if the contracts for these buy games could decrease as well. Just thinking supply and demand, there's a lot less supply, excuse me, for these group of 5 games, these buy games, excuse me, and there's going to be more demand because all these group of 5 teams, they still want to get paid, they want to get their money. So that is something to follow pretty soon. Maybe instead of seeing contracts creep up towards up to $2 million on the high end, or closer to 1 million.
I think that's a really good point at the end. How you mentioned, the contracts might go down. Whereas like, I kind of feel like, whoever drives an easier bargain or less of a bargain will get those games where it's like, say a school like Kent State, okay, we want 1 million to play Kentucky. But you never know. Like maybe a team like I guess Sam Houston or Kennesaw State is okay. We'll play you guys for 800,000, and it becomes that type of bidding game. So, that is quite interesting. Honestly, something I didn't even think of beforehand. Where it's like, man, these games might start going into like the lowest bid. Where it's like maybe a Kent State. I know we're talking about Kent State a lot. Want to pick another Group of Five program or like maybe a Georgia State then ask for like really needs like $3 million or so for their budget, but it's like okay, we can't do that so we're gonna play someone different at a lower asking price. It's all game of schedules too, like because I think price dictates a lot of it too. I think of why a lot of schools, even SEC schools, are starting to play Northeast Conference teams. Like Florida has Long Island this year, and I can imagine it's because Long Island drove much less of a harsh bargain than a lot of FCS teams. So that's a really good point I overlooked.
Yeah, at the end of the day, there's not much of a difference between playing a school like Long Island versus playing a school like Stanford. Actually, there is a difference because Florida had Dan Mullen at one point, and Dan Mullen got some like 55 points put on his head from Stanford. But at the end of the day, these games are pretty close to guarantee wins. They are called guarantee games for a reason. And you want to get a good win, you want to get some reps, get some money from ticket sales and all that. But at the end of the day, there's not that much of a difference. You can save some money, and Lord knows everybody's trying to save money right now so they can fund these $20 million rosters at the Power Five level. So, final point or final thing that we're going to be talking about today is previewing the service academies. Omar, I'm going to obviously give you more of the leash for more of the reins for this. But just historically, Air Force, Army, and Navy have had some of the biggest disadvantages in the sport of college football, which obviously has so many advantages and different advantages and resources, all of that. There's higher academic standards, there's size restrictions, there's no use of the transfer portal. And it's also just difficult to recruit people because everybody has to join the military after graduation. On the other hand, these programs all have their own advantages. Coaching is probably the main one. Um, Jeff Monken, Troy Calhoun are very experienced, fantastic head coaches. They know how to win at Air Force and Army. Brian Newberry, he is newer than the other two, but he has proven that he's a good coach as well. 10-3 last year in year two. These teams are also some of the most disciplined teams in the country. A lot of that just comes with the guys they're recruiting and just what being in the military means. And they all run a variation of the option offense. It is more rare nowadays than ever. And it is also very difficult to stop. It is a scheme that you have to game plan for. You're only going to see it once, maybe twice every year. And it's not, it's something that opposing teams hate to see coming. Omar, tell me why these service academies can be good this year.
So for this year, I mean, I think in the portal era, the stability of service academy teams and development emphasis really helps them a lot. Where guys go there to become developed, right? There's guys that I mean, we have 3-star recruits, obviously, but there's a lot of like 2-star, 1-star guys that the service academies are really their only FBS chance. And um, I mean, we're winning a lot more recruiting battles, I should say, recruiting battles in the group of five because we can play in the playoff now. So that's an added bonus. But the development aspect where it's like, we're going to take a guy, we're not going to give up on you, we're not going to bring in someone from the portal to take your spot, right? So you have that stability, you have that room to develop. That really means a lot in the portal era, where you have guys that that are under one system, that know the system like the back of their hand, and can succeed and execute, and also be developed and learn from other, good players in such a system. Something that comes to mind for me is a guy like for Arby for John Radigan, class of 2021. Senior year was or senior season was in 2020. Before his senior season, he had only before his senior season, he had only I think it was like 6 tackles in his career. And then his senior season, with it being the pandemic, was he had 78 tackles, but he had learned behind other guys in his position. So same thing at Navy and Air Force. You have guys that develop, and that doesn't come without its drawbacks. Where it's like a team like Air Force last year that had to take a step back, that had a lot of turnover, but in turn this year they have a lot of guys that got experience and they're looking like a bowl team again. On the flip side too. the whole portal era kind of works back against kind of works against teams too. Like UNLV this past weekend, like they had a bunch of guys. I know I was expecting them to be really good, and they still can be real good, but it did not look like the pieces clicked in the transfer portal because it looked like, I think someone put it as them be looking like an expansion team in terms of they picked a bunch of players in an expansion draft and put them on the team. And in that way, it's like, I guess if you're a power four program, and I'm not saying that Army's going to beat Kansas State, but if you're a power four program playing early in the year, the pieces aren't clicking. You don't have that team chemistry yet. A disciplined team with a alert, like with a system that everyone knows on the program, with a shared mindset can sneak up on you and win such a game like that. So I think the at the same time, while the portal works against Army and the player agency works against Army, Army, Navy, Air Force, they have always adjusted to different eras of college football. I mean, like you said, like going to the Army, I mean, post Vietnam, when there's a lot of public distrust in the military, players wanted to go to the NFL. Air Force started their stretch of like having this probably one of the most consistent stretches of military academy football. For years, they adjusted, ran the wishbone and everything. Same thing with Army with under Jeff Monken and everything. Same thing with Navy. So I feel like there will always be a way for the academies to adjust.
Yeah, I would agree. They're probably some of the most, I guess versatile is the right word. They will see what they have to do to win. They know, again, any coach at a service academy knows the disadvantages they have. They know that they can build a program like pretty much anybody else in the country. And I'm almost thinking, what if whenever I see a team, see Army or Navy be really successful, I'm almost thinking, like, why doesn't anybody else do this? Obviously, there are tons of reasons why not. And this year, we're going to see Rice running a version of the option as well. So that'll be an interesting experiment. But yeah, in this, there's just you first off, you just have to have that ability to develop talent. You have to have that culture, that just being in the military and knowing, hey, there may be five or so guys, maybe not even five. There may be a couple guys that leave every year for the transfer portal. Kane Udo from Army is probably the biggest example of a very high profile guy who left. Um, but other than that, you're going to have the same guys. You're going to have the same guys learning pretty much the same system for 3, 4 years. They're going to get reps. They're going to be experienced. And so the other point you made about, just guys sticking around the same program for so long, something that I know a lot of people talked about, mainly with Deion Sanders in Colorado that first year when they brought in, what was it, 50, 60 new guys from the transfer portal, something ridiculous. Everybody talked about, oh, how bad the team chemistry is going to be. These guys don't know each other on the offensive line. There's no communication. They don't know how to do any of that thing, any of that, etc. But I didn't think their chemistry was that bad until you compare it to a team like Army or Navy. You don't think about the loss in chemistry until you're playing a team where, yeah, everybody knows everybody. They've known each other for multiple years, and it makes a big difference there. It makes a big difference just with the way these guys are coached. And again, this is maybe the brightest future we've seen for the service academies in a long time, partly because of the transfer portal and the changes in college football that a lot of people thought would only bury the programs further.
Yeah, it's interesting too because I always bring it up, and I hope that I'm not, not proven wrong or someone else gets the last laugh. But I always feel like different things happen, and people kind of beckon it as the end of service academy football. Like with the cut blocking rule in 2022, it took some time for Army to adjust. They switched to the gun option 2022. They were less consistent. They averaged, I think, around the same amount of rushing yards, but they were less consistent running the ball. There was more, I think, the rushing totals were more so one-off explosive plays than just a consistent Army trend that with the cut blocking rule. And people decried it as the end of service academy football as we know it. But Army adjusted, Navy adjusted. Navy ran a completely different scheme. Army went back to the old scheme and figured it out, honestly, without, I guess, for lack of a better term. So I feel like in these days and ages, like, Army's gonna figure it out. Like Army, Navy. I know I'm saying Army, I guess, because maybe Of course, I'm biased, but the academies are going to figure it out somehow. I mean, I don't know what else is going to happen with the cost of attendance and whatnot, but like somehow I feel like the academies are going to figure. It might take some time, but they're going to figure it out, like you said. And the chemistry too. Like you can't really I guess you can't really overlook that. And in addition to the chemistry, like a lot of those guys, like they don't redshirt at the academies, but a lot of guys at all three academies, they go to a prep school, which is essentially a redshirt year where they're getting experience, they're getting actual in-game experience, they're getting developed further. And so you can't really beat that. I mean, they're not playing Division I football, but a lot of guys that get redshirted, they have the 4 game rule, but you have guys that are getting I don't know how many games they play. I want to say it's like 7 or 8 games worth of like live game reps playing at a prep school. So forgot to mention that before, but yeah, like I mean, I'm not too concerned, especially like the way that I mean college football is going, where like you said, like there's just new teams being rolled out, and you have to, like you said with Colorado, that's 50 or 60 guys that have to build under a new system. Like it's not just like plug and play. It's like a complete overhaul sometimes some of these rosters, which is really crazy.
Yeah, and the way the transfer portal's been going these past couple of years, it almost feels like each year there's more and more guys entering the portal. There's a lot of sometimes you see coaches with pressure thinking, "Hey, we got to win this year." What do? They just bring in 30 or so senior transfers just to try and get bodies in there, try to save their job, and it can work. It may not always work. Colorado again can be two examples of it: 4-8 one year, 8-5, 9-4. Excuse me, the other. Um, there's two sides to the coin, obviously, but sometimes you just having that consistency is it just works out better for you in the end. So, last thing I'm going to ask you, Omar, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot right here. Let's talk about playoffs. What do you think? I know you hate me talking about this. I know how much you love seeing Army in the Independence Bowl last year. Are one of these service academies going to make the playoffs in the next 5 years, let's say?
I think it really depends on path because like for the group of five, I mean, I kind of don't think the group of five has much of a use anymore because we've gone to straight seeding, a 5+11 or 5+7 format. So it's like, you know, really doesn't matter. Group of five, power four, like no one's reserved a spot in the playoff. But I think it just depends on path. Like Navy this year, it's a combination of path and talent. Navy this year, this is the most talented Navy team that's been around for I guess for a while, honestly. The most hype I've seen Navy get in the preseason in my lifetime. I think I don't even think the Keenan Reynolds team's got this much hype. They have the talent, they have the path as well. They'll play a Notre Dame team in November that will boost their resume if they go 12-0, or if they go 11-1 and put up a better showing against Notre Dame than Boise State does. They have that comparative nature. So it's like it's the best combination of path and I think and talent for Navy. As for like the next 5 years, I want to say I want to say the best chance probably comes out of the American, honestly, for Army or Navy. And I want to say that I think the Pac-12 it'll be neck and neck with the Pac-12 for that last conference champion spot, but I can see Army or Navy winning the conference with one loss and getting in over a two-loss Pac-12 team. I mean, because the Pac-12 uh it's essentially I mean it's the Mountain West with Oregon State and Washington State. But I just think there's just too much parity. In the American, the American is very top heavy. It's becoming very top heavy with Memphis, Army, Navy, Tulane as well. So it's like in any year where you only play like maybe one or two of those schools, where say you avoid Army or say Army or Navy avoids Memphis but plays Tulane or some combination of that, where they just have to get over the hump against one of those games, at least Army or Navy, and they're in with a 11-1 record, 12-1 record. So I say yes, but um, I don't know. It's hard for me to guarantee. I'm 50-50 to be with you or to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that I'm probably that same way. And I want to say I think Army would be the most likely of the three programs to make the playoff. Not saying this year, but over the 5 year stretch. And my reasoning is this: every year Navy's playing Notre Dame. Notre Dame is sure that's a great opportunity to get a quality win. They're going to be top 10 most years, but I think two things. One, Notre Dame is they're prepping to play Navy, and sometimes Army every single year. I think also the way that team is coached under Marcus Freeman, they are going to be disciplined as well. They're a physical team. I just think that it is much less likely for Navy to pull off that upset, or in all honesty, even keep that game close a lot of the time. I think it's more likely. Let's look at Army. Just this year, for example, Kansas State, there's a much better chance that Army can upset Kansas State than Navy will upset Notre Dame. And I do not know Army's future schedule. I'm not sure who else they're going to be playing in 2026, 2027. I know you do.
Yeah, so they got Wake in 2026, which, like you said, like that's a power conference win.
Mm.
2027, we don't have a power conference team on the schedule just yet. I don't think we will because we have UConn as our one non Air Force slash Navy FBS school. 2028, we have Boston College. So yeah, I mean, like you said, like the Notre Dame game is such a huge hurdle. But I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
Don't
thank you
you go.
for interrupting, actually. Wake Forest, when Wake Forest was really good with Sam Hartman, I mean, Army almost beat them 2 times, right?
It was just that. So 2022 was a blowout, but 21 was that shootout, that 7-56 shootout. That was really insane. But yeah, I mean it's always close with Wake Forest, like except for 2022 where we got beat 45-10, but it's always close. Like that's an easy game, and I mean a win over a 6-6 Wake Forest team. I mean that's not it's not great, but it's better than say um I guess not beating a power conference team. Honestly, I
Oh,
don't
yeah,
know
I
how else
will
to
say. What do you think looks better in the eyes of the committee? Beating 6-6 Wake Forest, 28-24, losing to 11-1, 10-2 Notre Dame, 41-10. You know what I'm saying? You can at least say, hey, we beat a good team. We didn't get blown out. That makes a big difference. And something else that could help with the American, yes, this is a very top heavy conference, but there's a chance that you can beat Tulane, who's number 23, for example. You get a top 25 win under your belt. And you can also, you have some more blowout wins over the UABs of the conference, Tulsa. Hopefully some of these teams improve, but just looking at where they're at right now, you have some opportunities to get convincing wins. And I think a lot of people still think that the American is deeper as a conference than it is. So I think that some brand bias might be in their favor as well.
Interesting. That's an interesting point. Like we didn't mention Air Force at all because I kind of feel like no one really knows what the Mountain West is going to be. Like there's already that kind of PR fight against and it's sad that it comes down to PR when it comes to playoff rankings and everything, or playoff perception. But there's that perception where it's like Air Force's toughest test each year might just be UNLV and that's it, and where they need to beat Air Force and Navy to boost their resumes. So, I mean, just wanted to bring that up, just the fact that we're not really talking about Air Force in terms of the playoff, but it just sucks that the Mountain West has that perception bias against it.
Yeah, I think the Mountain West is going to be much closer to the MAC and CUSA than the American Pac-12 Sun Belt. Just it's basically the bottom half of the Mountain West, which is still a very good conference right now, but you're losing a lot of those top brands, and I think that the conference is going to be overlooked by a lot of people in a way similar to what happened to the WAC at the end of that conference's run. Again, no disrespect to what Troy Calhoun and this Air Force program has done. They have been a model of success. There's a reason he's been around for what, 16, 17 years now. He's been there for a good bit of time. But just seeing that conference and seeing what's going on there, if they stay in the Mountain West, it limits their opportunities to make the playoff, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. And I will give Troy Calhoun credit and Air Force credit as well. It seems like that they attract, and I think it's just because of the way that the Air Force is how it can sell its version of service. As you know, of course, you can be a pilot. I know Brian Billick wanted to be a fighter pilot. He started off at Air Force and then he transferred to BYU because he found out he was too tall to be a fighter pilot. But um you can recruit for a much more, I guess, tech intensive, cooler, I guess, if you will, version of service than Army and Navy. So the pro talent that they've had at Air Force has just been amazing, honestly. Like I know Trey Taylor won. I was surprised. I never in my lifetime would I have imagined that any player from a service academy would win an award. Like I think it was the Jim Thorpe Award that he won in 2023. Like I would never have imagined that, but Trey Taylor sure did it. So all credit to Troy Calhoun for like recruiting just great talent. And it seems like before Jeff Monken, and before Jeff Monken, and I think before like the mid 2010s, like there was always an Air Force player or two that was on an NFL roster. I know Chad Hall was on the Niners, the great running back for Air Force in the late 2000s. He was on the Niners Super Bowl roster, if I'm not mistaken, and I do think he had a target in the Super Bowl too, but I might be making that up. So I think Troy Calhoun just does a great job recruiting talent. At Air Force. But yeah, like you said, like the Mountain West, like no one really knows what it's going to be. There's that perception. It's sad that there's an uphill battle because Air Force and UNLV have done really good in recent years. San Jose State's on the come up. On They've been playing catch up because San Jose State really didn't care about football until the mid 2000s. But man, it's just unfortunate.
For sure. But again, at the end of the day, this is a exciting time to be a fan of Service Academy football. I think just as a neutral fan, everybody's more inclined to root for the United States Service Academies just from a whole pride type of thing. And it's always I think it's fun to see a Service Academy with an upset. It's exciting to see, or I think it's more fun to see a a program that's, I guess, in it for all the right reasons. These are men that are going to serve the country after they graduate. These are men that aren't playing for NIL. They're not playing for the transfer portal. They're just playing for themselves. They're playing for their team. It's what college football has been historically. And in some instances, we don't see that as much anymore. So again, it makes them very easy to root for and very excited to cheer on.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't have said it better, Alec.
Thank you. So with that, we're going to wrap things up today. Again, Omar, thank you so much for dealing with the technical difficulties, and being able to record this in your car. Again, just thank you so much. Omar, again, he is fantastic. If you haven't picked this up from this 36-minute video, at Omar Rashan Borji on Twitter. That will be linked in the bio, as well as the Hardware Pod, which Omar does some great work there as well.
Thank you, Alec. I really appreciate the kind words. Hey, it's been a pleasure.
To all still watching, thank you so much. You guys have a great day. Goodbye.